Hello everyone and welcome back to the video. Today we'll be talking about the top 5 best foot archers in Age of Empires 2. So to start off, most of these will be unique units. Spoiler, that's just how it is. But we will be comparing the unique units to the standard crossbow and arbalest. I would say every civ in the game besides 2 gets the crossbowman tech in Castle Age, and around half the civilizations get access to the arbalest tech in Imperial Age. So with all that said, let's go ahead and hop right into the top 5 list. Starting off at number 5, we've got the Genoese crossbow. The Genoese crossbow is an anti-cavalry specialist, and its stats overall are pretty decent, but it really gets its punch from the anti-cavalry bonus damage. Let's take a look at the raw stats for the one in Castle Age. It's going to be sitting around 45 HP, so 10 more than the crossbow, with 6 attack, 1 more than the crossbow, and it's going to have a base of 1 melee armor, which is actually quite solid. The downside though is that it only has 4 range compared to the crossbowman with 5 base. So when it comes to the Genoese crossbow in Castle Age, I would say it's overall better than the crossbow, but it has less range, which could be abused in certain situations. However, the most important part about the Genoese crossbow is the fact that it gets +6 bonus damage against cavalry. That means it's doing double the base attack against a cavalry unit compared to any other unit in the game. What's also worth noting is that the Castle Age version will do 2 damage to a mangonel instead of the 1 damage from the regular crossbow. So microing against mangonels is a lot easier, assuming that you can get within that range, because you have 1 less range, which makes it a little bit hard to kind of close that gap. But once you're there, you're going to be dealing double the damage as a crossbow, which is quite significant. Moving on to the elite version, it is somewhat better than the arbalest, but it still has that 4 range base, which is kind of holding it back a little bit, putting it at only 7 range when fully upgraded compared to the arbalest that has 8. It has 50 HP and still that 6 attack, and honestly the elite upgrade for the Genoese crossbowman is not that impressive. The only difference between its standard version is the fact that it gets +5 HP and +2 damage against cavalry, putting it at 8 extra damage versus all cavalry units. That is quite solid, but honestly the elite upgrade is kind of a scam for its price. Overall though, the Genoese crossbow is really good at countering cavalry civs, which are very popular, so definitely a staple on the top 5 best foot archer list in Age of Empires. That being said though, it has some weaknesses compared to the regular arbalest, and it does cost more, sitting at 45 wood and 40 gold, so it's not the craziest deal for me, and definitely not the foot archer you always want to go for. It's more of a situational unit that can be very powerful. Moving on to number 4, we've got one of the newer unique units in the game, the Composite Bowman. Now, the Composite Bowman is one of my favorite units in the game at the moment. It is so incredibly strong in Castle Age, and it feels like it just does so much damage, and that's because it is a unique unit that ignores armor. Think about it, a Huskroll is usually the worst nightmare for any archer unit in the game. Well, not for the Composite Bowman. The Huskroll has 8 pierce armor in Castle Age when fully upgraded. The Composite Bowman does not care. It will deal full damage against that Huskroll in every shot. Now, because of that, it has a low base attack, sitting around 4, so when you upgrade it, it has 6 base attack, 1 less than the crossbow, but at least it does all that damage as true damage, ignoring all armor. So it's a very consistent 6 damage per shot. It has 40 HP, 5 more than the crossbow, 1 melee armor, which is nice, but unfortunately, once again, it has only 4 range, really limiting its combat against other range units. So the Composite Bowman is similar to the Genoese crossbow. Genoese crossbow is a counter to cavalry. The Composite Bowman would be a counter usually to infantry units. Units that have to close the gap and attack it and get up close. It can really take advantage of those units because it ignores armor, does very high damage, and can kite them very easily. And in that case, the 4 range that it has, 1 less than the crossbow, is not that big of a deal, and you're going to be more than fine microing back and forth with the Composite Bowman. It has a relatively fair cost, sitting around 35 wood and 45 gold, so only 10 more wood compared to a standard archer, and overall it feels like a very strong unit in the Castle Age. Going on to its elite version now, it suffers again the same downsides as the Genoese crossbow. The elite version still only has 4 range, upgraded to 7 range when you factor in bracer, but at least it has 2 melee armor, so it's very strong against melee units, setting its identity as a counter to both infantry and cavalry units. It still only has the base 4 attack, but remember, you get chemistry and bracer in addition, so you're going to go up to 8 damage in Imperial Age, and you have 45 HP, which is an extra 5 compared to the arbalest and an extra 5 from its standard version. Overall, the elite upgrade is not that great. It doesn't really give that many relevant stats, and it's the kind of thing where you only get when you can afford it. That being said though, it is pretty cheap, sitting at only 600 wood and 500 gold, so you can probably pick it up as soon as you can afford it. What's nice is that the elite upgrade costs the same as the unit itself, so if you're making the unit, you probably have a good amount of wood and gold to spend, so getting the elite upgrade should come as a very easy thing and a natural pickup. Overall, I love the Composite Bowman. I think it's the ace unit for the Armenians as far as the backline goes, and I think it's a really strong unit to counter a lot of cavalry and infantry civs that we see running around the meta at the moment, mostly in the cavalry department, but also some in the infantry, like the Goths, for example. Moving on to number 3, we've got the Plumed Archer. Now, a few years ago, I would have easily put the Plumed Archer as the number 1 best foot archer in the game, no problem. But with the release of the Definitive Edition, it actually got a nerf on its cost. It was made more expensive, which kind of negated the point of the Plumed Archer as a cheap, spammable unit that the mines can go for. Now, the base cost of the Plumed Archer in Castle Age is going to be 55 wood and 55 gold. But remember, this is going to come at a minus 30% discount because the mines naturally get that with their unique bonus. So you have to factor that in when considering the cost of the unit. It comes at 50 HP, 5 base attack, 1 pierce armor, and 4 range. So comparing it to the crossbowman, it is way better. And the best part about the Plumed Archer is that it's actually a very fast unit. It moves way faster than the crossbow. So in Castle Age, I would say that this is an absolute S tier unit. It is way better than the Archer line and the standard crossbow. It's just that it's going to be a little bit more expensive. The full range barely matters because of your high movement speed. You can easily close the gap. And the 50 HP lets you tank Magno shots, lets you tank extended trades against other Archer units, and lets you do quite fine against skirmishers because you're so tanky, you're so fast, and you've got that extra pierce armor to help you in those range-on-range combats. The Plumed Archer in Castle Age is genuinely top tier. I would even put it as number 1. So where is the discrepancy here? It really comes with the Elite upgrade. Now, the Elite upgrade is quite expensive, but it doesn't cost gold, sitting at 700 food and 1,000 wood, which is quite hard to afford, but hey, at least it doesn't cost gold, so it kind of helps you in the long run. And the Elite Plumed Archer stats are very impressive, sitting at 65 HP, 5 attack, 2 pierce armor, and 5 range. But I only have one downside with the Elite Plumed Archer. It's that 5 attack that really holds it back. In my opinion, if this unit was at 6 attack, it'd be probably broken, like absolutely insane. But the fact that it's at 5 attack makes it very hard to justify over the Arbalest in certain situations where you need more DPS. The Plumed Archer for me is one of those units that's best in 1v1, where you're able to kite, you really take advantage of that movement speed, and be that unit that can jump in and out of fights as it pleases. It's not very good as a backline DPS unit because missing that one attack usually means that you're dealing like 30% less damage per shot. Because remember, high armor units in late game like the Paladin will go up to 3 plus 4 armor. So they're going to be sitting at 7 pierce armor. The Plumed Archer will deal only 2 damage to the Paladin, whereas the Arbalest will deal 3 damage, a effective DPS increase of 33%. So that 1 damage that you're missing is actually a really big deal. That said, it's still one of the best foot archers in the game. The only downside to it right now is the high cost in Castle Age and the -1 attack in Imperial Age. That kind of hurts the unit compared to a general Arbalest, but in my opinion, it's still way better than an Arbalest, at least a generic one, because it has way more HP, way more movement speed, and it has the exact same range. So it's very solid. It just has a couple of downsides holding it back. But honestly, thank God for those downsides, because if they didn't have those downsides, if the mines had access to, a Plumed Archer that was cheaper and that has 6 attack in Imperial Age, it would be the most broken unit in the entire game, without a doubt. Moving on to number 2 here, we've got the Rattan Archer. Now, the Rattan Archer has some very impressive stats, and in my opinion, it's one of the best foot archers in the game right now, both in Castle Age and Imperial Age. The Rattan Archer comes at a cost of 50 wood and 45 gold, which is comparable to an archer in terms of gold, but it's double the cost in terms of wood. So it's definitely on the more expensive side of things. But if you look at the stats, it has 40 HP and 6 attack base with 4 pierce armor. That's really where it gets its strongest quality, and it has 4 range. So 1 less range than a crossbow, but you get 1 extra damage and 5 more HP and 4 extra pierce armor. Just to put it in perspective, an elite skirmisher in Castle Age has 4 pierce armor. So the Rattan Archer is equivalent to an elite skirmisher in terms of tankiness, meaning when you get both armor upgrades in Castle Age, an enemy crossbowman will do only 1 damage against you. You're gonna have 6 armor, crossbow have 7 attack, boom, that's 1 damage per shot. With 40 HP, that is 40 crossbows needed to one-shot a Rattan Archer. So the Rattan Archer is really setting itself as an anti-archer archer unit, which is very unique in the game. There's only pretty much one unit that does this trick, which is the Rattan Archer. The only other unit that comes close is the Plumed Archer, because it has a little bit of extra tankiness and pierce armor, but really the Rattan Archer takes the cake by far in this category. But my favorite thing about the Rattan Archer is just how strong the elite upgrade is. The elite upgrade is quite costly at 1,000 food and 750 gold, but it gives plus 5 HP and extra damage, putting it at 7 base damage, which is the highest in the game for a foot archer, and it comes with 6 pierce armor and 5 range. So you're really not behind the Arbalest in any department. You have 5 extra HP over the Arbalest. You're gonna have 7 attacks, so 1 extra compared to the Arbalest. You're gonna have 6 pierce armor, which is 6 more than the Arbalest, and the exact same range as a standard Arbalest. So really the only downside to the elite Rattan Archer is the cost in Imperial Age. Everything else is strictly better than a standard Arbalest. Now you could factor in the fact that the archers from Vietnamese are more tanky, so in that sense the Rattan Archer will have less HP compared to the regular archer. But honestly, that's pretty negligible. It's gonna come to like 3 HP, which is fair enough. It's definitely worth mentioning, because I know someone would correct me in the comments in this case if I didn't. But even with that in mind, I feel like the elite Rattan Archer is still way better than the Arbalest in late game, and has the place in pretty much any Imperial Age comp when it comes to Vietnamese. If you can afford it, you go for it. That's the rule with Rattan Archer. It's very simple, and it's one of the strongest units. Before I talk about number 1, I'm going to quickly mention the Chu Ko Nu here as an honorable mention. I'm not going to go into depths about the Chu Ko Nu stats because it's really quite a complicated unit to break down. In my opinion, the Chu Ko Nu is a solid, really high DPS unit from the backline, but the problem is it has only 4 range, and I think that is a very limiting factor when it comes to a unit that has nothing else special about it. It does shoot multiple arrows, which is really good against rams and high pierce armor targets, but besides that, I feel like the Chu Ko Nu is just not as strong compared to the other units on the list. If I had a 6th spot on the list, I'd definitely give it to Chu Ko Nu. It's definitely better than a Arbalest in Imperial Age and a crossbowman in Castle Age, but the less range kind of holds it back a little bit, and its special qualities of having extra arrows is not enough to make up for that lack of range, in my opinion. Definitely has really strong damage, and actually I made a mistake. The Rattan archer has 7 damage, but the elite Chu Ko Nu has 8, so it's actually the highest DPS archer unit in the game, but it just feels a little bit clunky to use, and it has that only 4 range, which hurts it a little bit in late game. Definitely a strong unit and worth mentioning though. Moving on to the number 1 best foot archer in the game. It's very obvious for those who have played or even heard about Age of Empires before. It's the Longbowman. Longbowman is one of the best units in the game. Take a look at its final stats here for a second, and you should just be able to understand exactly why this is taking the number 1 spot. So it's going to have a total of 12 range when you factor in all the unique techs and unique bonuses that the Britons have. So 12 range in Imperial Age, which is like dwarfing the 8 range of the other really strong archers on this list. You have 4 extra range over the highest range other archer in the game. You're going to have 7 attack for the elite version, 1 more than Arbalest, same HP, and having 1 extra pierce armor just for good measure. The elite Longbowman basically has no counter compared to some of the other units on this list. It does well against elite skirmisher because you outrange them and you have high enough damage to break their pierce armor to some extent. You don't die to siege onager because you can outrange them and just easily snipe them. And so really your only counter is your opponent just diving you with a bunch of paladin or sending a bunch of siege ram your way to tank the Longbowman shots. Besides that, the Longbowman just takes out any unit in the game, with maybe the exception of the Rattan archer because it has a really high amount of pierce armor. But besides that, the high range and high damage of the Longbowman just allows it to bully other players and completely take over the game. It has a very cheap cost sitting at 35 wood and 40 gold, which is very comparable to a standard foot archer unit, and it has better stats across the board both in Castle Age and Imperial Age compared to a standard foot archer. It's a very strong unit in the game, and the only downside is that the Britons don't get access to thumb ring, so sometimes the shots can miss at very long range. But if you have a group of 40 to 50 of these guys, it's basically unstoppable, and I've got videos on my YouTube channel where I can just absolutely take over games, like one recently where I took over in an arena game with pure elite Longbowman 60, just absolutely mobbing forward and taking out all kinds of enemy armies. It is the best foot archer in the game by a good margin in my opinion, and other units could come close, but the elite Longbowman, the classic longbow, is going to be the best foot archer in the game until now. Thank you so much for watching the video. I hope you guys did enjoy. If you like these top 5 videos, be sure to let me know in the comments what kind of top 5 lists you want to see moving forward. I'm running kind of low on ideas for this kind of, video topic, but I really like the top 5 lists that I do, so I want to keep this series rolling. So do let me know if you have any ideas down in the comments and I can get some inspiration. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. But before I let you go, make sure to check out my Patreon if you guys want exclusive guides and content to try to get better at the game, and check out my Twitch live stream if you guys want to take part in the live stream and watch me play live. Both links to Patreon and Twitch in the description below. Okay, now you can go. Thanks for watching. Have a great rest of your day, and peace.